You're listening to The Moose and the Loose, your 10 minutes action-packed financial podcast with your host, Mikey Hu. Hey, what's up, Market Moose? Mike from the Moose on the Loose. Happy Tuesday. I hope that you have enjoyed Easter. I got a pretty busy weekend, actually. Last hockey tournament, first soccer game. So this is why I'm not having my full voice this morning. But anyways, today we're talking about possible dividend tax increase for Canadians holding U.S. securities. I got bombarded by emails about articles that were written last week where the Republicans have worked on a bill to actually completely change the taxes and the withholding taxes that are charged to foreign investors holding U.S. securities, including our dear gold fellow Canadians, right? So the big news is it could increase by 35%, could even go up to 50%. That is supposed to affect interest income, dividend tax, dividend income, and potentially even capital gains. So right now the situation is today, typically, non-U.S. resident are subject to a 30% withholding tax rate on most of their investment account. But there is a tax treaty between Canada and the U.S., so Canadians can invest in their RSPs and all the other retirement accounts, so the TFSA doesn't count into that. But RSPs, RIF, LIRA, locked-in RSPs and stuff like that, well, then there are no withholding taxes whatsoever. So it's the same treatment as Canadian securities than U.S. securities. But if you hold it in a TFSA, for example, or if you hold U.S. securities in an unregistered account, then the 30% withholding tax apply, but then you have the tax treaty reducing it to 15%. So all of this could be gone if the bills that is being worked on right now would pass. So first thing, over the past 2 minutes, have you noticed that I used the word possible, potentially, could, would, a lot of non-affirmative words, right? You know why? Because right now I'm just talking about noise. I'm just creating noise. And what's noise? It's when something may or may not happen, but it bothers you. It bothers you to the point that it hurts your ability to think, it increases your panic, and then you have the urge to spend a lot of time and a lot of energy trying to figure out scenarios. And that's noise because it's not going to have any impact on your life moving forward, and you should not spend that time on potential scenarios at all. So I thought, after receiving so many emails, after discussing this in my private webinar at Dividend Stocks Rock last week, I thought, you know what, let's do a global podcast on it, a 10-minute on how I deal with noise. Because seriously, when I read that news, I was like, okay, whatever, next on, and I'm gonna move on with my life and do something else. And then a lot of people would say, well, Mike, that is quite irresponsible. I mean, it would have a major impact for many Canadians if those taxes would be raised. And I'm like, yes, you're totally right. It would. But that's the key. That's the key word here. It would. So I'm going to show you how I would deal with this kind of news right now. So first, I would lay out the two possibilities in any scenarios, right? Two probable scenarios. In this case, it's really two items. The first one, there is a tax hike, or the second one, there's none, right? So in the first one, all right, so it happens now, you pay 30, 40, 50%, put the percentage that you want, put it at 50%, use the worst case scenario, so it's going to make it even easier for you to make choices. All right, so there is a 50% withholding tax rate now on everything that you receive from the U.S. Income, capital gain, dividends. Fine. So now, the first thing would be, how it will impact you, because everyone is different. For example, if there's just a withholding tax on the dividends, most of my U.S. securities are low yield, high dividend growth type of investment. So do I really mind getting my 0.5% yield taxed on Visa? Not that much. Same thing for Costco, same thing for Microsoft or for Apple. So it's not going to make a big difference in my life. But maybe it's not your case. Maybe you have like large yielders in your portfolio that are based in the US, and then you would have to pay a juicy tax on it. So all right, so calculate how much you receive in dividend for the year for the or interest income, and then calculate the tax on it, and then compare to what would be the alternative. Like if you were to sell all your US holdings and move everything back to Canada, where do you invest that money to keep a well diversified portfolio to stay aligned with your strategy and generate a similar level of income? I mean, maybe it's not even possible, so you're going to have your answer right away. So okay, so if I sell all my US stocks, my portfolio will be less diversified, will be less strong, and my expected return will be reduced because of that. Maybe that's going to be the case. Maybe you will find some Canadian companies that will fit, and you can actually reshuffle your portfolio and work on some calculation, build some Excel spreadsheet, and all that work, unfortunately, you will do it for nothing. And this is why we are going to move on to number 2. There is nothing that's going to happen, and you spent a ton of energy on to calculate scenarios that never existed. And even worse, even if something happens, chances are, actually 100% of the chances are, it will not be the scenario that you calculated. So you will have to go back to your drawing board, go back to your Excel spreadsheet, and spend the same amount of time and same amount of energy to work on the real calculation once it is sealed, when it is in action. So why working on possible scenarios is just working on noise, and you do it for nothing because you just calculate everything and invented scenarios based on thin air. You don't have clear information. And here's an example. Imagine that you have tried to prepare your portfolio to protect it against tariffs since November. It's been 6 months now that you are running in the dark blindly. So if you have modified your portfolio to avoid something that still is not in action, who knows if it's going to be the right move or not, right? But for sure, your level of panic, your level of discomfort, your level of conviction has decreased. And all of this for why? We don't know yet. We don't even have like clear rules, and we're April 22nd now, and it's still not clear after the Trump administration called for many, many dates where everything is going to be 100% clear and we're going to move forward. Nothing is happening. Those news are changing all the time. So when those possible things may or may not happen, I just let them be. And I keep on being happy with my portfolio that is aligned with my strategy, that is well diversified, and I don't see the urge of taking action on something that may or may not happen. And interestingly, if you look at the article that was written, I think it was in the Globe and Mail, that this is where like it created like a big wave of panic. I mean, they interviewed Mr. Dennis, that he's like a professional at KPMG, and he was like, well, it is unclear how the drift as would be passed right now because it's not, and quote, it's not very articulately worded and some internal inconsistencies. It needs to be reworked, and it's like a very far road before it gets approved. So while a lot of investors focused on panic mode say, well, there's something really bad, this article is telling me this. Well, in the very same article, experts told you, you know what? I mean, at this point, it's just like a lot of noise and not much else. I mean, I'm not even the one saying it. The experts are saying it, that the experts that have reviewed the bill. So again, think of how like the tariff stories have evolved over the past 6 months and how we are just still walking in the dark with this. It's going to be the same thing with the potential bills that may or may not increase your taxes. So why don't you wait until you get to the river before you cross the bridge? And in the meantime, the only thing that you should do is to look at your portfolio and make sure that it is aligned with your strategy and you have a high level of conviction into all of this. If there are more taxes down the road, so be it. Then you can make your moves at this time, but not like maybe 1/6 or a year before, and not even knowing exactly what's going to happen really with the taxation and with all the accounts. So I hope that this podcast has served you well. If it did, well, please consider taking like 5 seconds of your time going on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Give me a 5-star rating. It helps to spread the love of the Moose across Canada. All right, Moose, that's enough for today. Tomorrow, we are talking about my 4 favorite Canadian REITs. So stay tuned and stay invested. Hey, welcome to the disclaimer. If you're listening to The Moose and the Loose, you cannot really expect me to give you buy or sell recommendation or financial advice, right? You're here for fun, you're here for information and some entertainment. But I am not your financial advisor, I am not your broker, so therefore I'm not liable if you're losing money after listening to the podcast. If you're looking for some advice, go see a professional. If not, you can enjoy this show and do your due diligence after it.